Hello, I am making a video because that's what I want to do. We're going to talk about a lot of things in this video. I want to first of all say that I was inspired to make this video by a smoothie that I make, a smoothie, juice, whatever you want to call it, that I make. Watermelon mango juice is what I call it. It definitely has the consistency of juice, but I'm not going to use a juicer, I'm just going to use a blender. We're going to talk about a lot of things though, so I hope that you're down to listen to me blabber on about what constitutes a real food and why fruit is good for you, and the idea of avoiding fruit because of the sugar content. I think that idea is totally worthless to 99% of the population. I'm going to talk about the Garden of Eden, the agricultural revolution. I'm going to talk about intuition. I'm going to talk about picking the best fruit in the grocery store. And I'm going to share some words about enlightenment and meditation. Okay, so first of all, let's make this juice. So why I said I was inspired to make this video from the juice is because I love this juice so much. It really kind of changed my life. Oh, I wanted to show you guys one thing. Well, you can't hear it anymore because I knocked it open, but the way to choose a good watermelon is you give a wrap on it. If it sounds hollow, then you know that it's better, way better than the ones that you wrap on and they're not hollow. And another good sign is the yellow spot. It means it was chilling out on the ground for a while, ripening, and it's always good to know that your fruit was, chilling out on the ground for a while, I think, or just, actually ripening right there on the spot for a while. It's a good sign. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to cut the watermelon into eighths, and then I sort of chop it in half. I chop it into these really small pieces, because then I can just go, just chop right in there. It's really nice, simple, and easy. Just all really works out beautifully. There's probably a better way to do this, but because I'm still learning. I'm always just constantly learning how to do this better than I was doing it before. And so it's like, thank you for just helping me continue to learn. I just sort of seek divine inspiration whenever I am so inclined. You'll notice that you move in and out of like positive and negative states throughout life. So you just kind of, enjoy the positive ones, try your best, just move through the negative ones, it's all good. You just continue to, as long as you just stick with it, you'll probably, more than likely, begin to experience more of the positive and less of the negative, as you move forward. And really, try to process the negative parts really well and enjoy the positive parts best you can. Don't get attached to either. So I actually just had, I notice I'm already getting off track just talking about positivity, negativity, etc. Let's get back on track here. So I actually just had one of these drinks, one of these blenderfuls of this drink, and so it makes me want to address something, which is this idea about limiting your fruit intake because of the sugar content. Because people are really afraid of sugar, and I think that is a load of bollocks, and I'll tell you why I think that. Fruit, if you say that you should avoid fruit because of the sugar content, that's like saying, oh, you don't eat fruit because it's a sugary food. That's like saying, don't eat celery because it's a salty food, or don't eat avocados because there's fat in it, or whatever. It doesn't really like, nutrition doesn't really work like that. As long as you're eating real foods, you can eat whatever you want. Okay, so then, what's a real food? A real food, oh, and this is what I do next. I smush it down in there and just blend that up. And then with the liquid from that, then the rest of the ingredients will just sort of get sucked down in. So what is a real food? A real food to me is a food that is a whole fresh plant and is naturally delicious, eaten by itself in abundance. So let me say that again. A food that in its natural whole fresh state can be eaten in abundance and will be just delicious. You'll notice that actually cuts out a lot of things that you might consider right now to be foods. For instance, meat. Meat is, apparently it's edible, but it's not really a food. I mean, you wouldn't, some people like to eat it raw. I don't know if it's really delicious raw. I guess raw fish is really, some people really like that or whatever, raw chicken livers and whatnot. I'm not really going to address that. I don't know about that. My intuition is that that is, you know, not for me. So let's talk about some other things like garlic. Garlic is definitely edible, but would you sit in a garden or whatever, wild garlic, wherever you find it and just go, nom, 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 nom? I don't think that you really would. It's a weird thing. I mean, maybe you would. I know that some people like to do that with onions sometimes. I actually do know some people who like to do that. And I've eaten a whole onion before, more as an experiment than anything else. But I covered it in like hummus, so doesn't really count because then it's not naturally delicious. So how could I classify it as a food if it's not actually like good to just munch on plain and fresh? So hummus is another thing too, because beans, I mean, beans are to be eaten in limited quantities because they're not delicious in their whole fresh state. Same with rice. You wouldn't just pick a bunch of rice and eat it fresh. If you have to cook something in order to make it good, how much of a food is it really? I mean, it's not as if Earth or God or whatever has provided this food for you. It really hasn't. Like, your intellectual connections between fire and heat and changing food, that's what has brought you that edible content. And it does contain a certain amount of nutrition, but it contains close to zero vitality. One sec, let me just... Alright, now that that's liquid, we can just put the rest in and it'll all work out. So basically, what's left? You know, what is a good food? A good food is a fruit. You can take sweet, delicious fruits, and if they're ripe, you can just munch on them all day, every day. I mean, fruits are the real deal. You can, and then some of the vegetables too. Some people get really picky. This is not like a level that a lot of people are at, but I do know that some of my audience is at a point where they're even picky about the types of vegetables that they eat. Like, they won't eat kale because they don't think that it's naturally delicious, you know, in abundance. some people do find kale to be naturally delicious in abundance. So, you know, for them, kale is definitely a real good food. For others, though, maybe the only really good vegetables are like, you know, the sweeter lettuces and maybe cucumbers, maybe, you know, whatever they like. Just the kind of sweeter, milder leaves. But, you know, everyone's got different tastes. So, I mean, these foods, though, people think of meat as like this really life-giving food, but that's just silly. I mean, perhaps an ice age or a famine or something caused people to need to eat meat in order to survive at some point. And that's cool. You gotta survive. You do. You really, I mean, it's kind of a basic purpose of life, you know, is to survive. And so if you have to eat meat to do that, then by all means, you know. But real food, fruit, is in abundance now. I mean, if we choose the right foods, we can really make, you know, we can live as if we're in the Garden of Eden. I think that's such a really beautiful concept. The Garden of Eden is just full of, you know, fruits and plants and man just feasting on whatever plants suit his fancy. It's a really, really good deal. So plants are really the real foods. Meat is something that people used to need to survive, but we don't need it anymore, so we don't really need to continue eating it. There's really a lot more vitality to be found in the fresh plants. So I'm using 3/4 of a mini watermelon for this, but the basic idea is to just fill the blender up enough so that there's just enough space for a mango, or a little more, you know, whatever. You could adjust the ratios as you want, maybe put 2 mangoes in there, or maybe just half a mango. Watermelon just makes a superb base for so many kind of juicy smoothies.